We're going to start working on the porch block now. For this block I'm going to be using the Aplastic fusible web again. Okay, and so for this I have printed out the reversed design so that I can trace the individual pieces onto the Aplastic. Okay, this is a really easy block with the exception of just a couple of little pieces here, but otherwise it's a really easy block to sew. So I have, since I have printed this out on the reverse design, I will work with my light box, I have done this already, to place my registration marks on my background block. And so, I don't know if this is clear on camera, but you will see here that I have traced these lines here to help me. These are going to be hand embroidered. And then for the fence, or the, I don't know if for the porch slats, what I've done is I measured the, let's check this here. These measure 3/4 of an inch. Okay, and they are, for the finished block it's 5 inches, so I've added the seam allowances because I'm going to be able to tuck them under this piece right here. So I am estimating that each one of these is going to be cut at 3/4 of an inch times 5.5, so that they can be tucked into the seam allowance. And then this longer piece here, the block measures 12 inches finished, which means that with seam allowances it would be 12.5. It's also 3/4 of an inch. So what I've done is I have actually pressed a whole sheet of Aplastic onto my fabric, and I will cut these strips 3/4 of an inch. This is 11 inches long, so I can get 2 pieces from each strip, with the exception of the long one, so I've added a little piece here to accommodate this long piece right here. Okay, so that is 8 pieces that will measure 5.5 by 3/4 of an inch, and then one piece that's a 3/4 of an inch times 12.5. Okay, and that makes it really easy. Instead of having to trace these, you can just cut them with your rotary cutter. So we're going to follow the order established in the pattern. So this is the first piece here, like the legs of this chair. And here, just remember that you have to leave a little bit of fabric because this will be tucked under piece number 2. Okay, and then I'm going to do these 2 pieces and we'll come back and see how we lay down the pieces, these slats for the porch. Okay, so I'm ready to sew these strips on. This is the line, which actually is about halfway on the long strip. On the long strip, this is going to be like in the middle of the strip. So all you need to do is make sure that you center your strips along the lines that were marked. Okay, and so actually these are a little bit high, so I will move them, but what you want to do is make sure that this is centered along the line. Okay, and you will notice that there's quite a bit of fabric left over down here. That is because I've cut my blocks about 2 inches larger than they need to be. So by the time I finish appliquing and trim them down, this will be within the seam allowance. Okay, so actually if you want, you can move this, because since this is the longest piece, you could actually move this down quite a bit more. And this is one of the reasons why I like this product so much, because you can just pick it up and move it. So I would say if this is the center, then I'm going to move it down about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, to make sure that by the time I finish sewing this on, this will be caught within the seam allowance. Okay, and then I'm going to move these back down again, but this is what it's going to look like when it's finished. So I'm going to keep putting down my pieces. Just to show you again, this is the pattern, and you will see that the strips are cut longer than the pieces in the pattern. So all you want to make sure is that this is tucked under the longer piece, that you leave enough space there, and then this will be cut within the seam allowance. So all the strips have been sewn on, and I have hand embroidered the stems for the flowers. So all that's left to do here is the flower pot and the flowers themselves. Something that I notice here, it's very clear in this type of block when you've got so many strips, is how when sewing these down you do get some shrinkage. So here it's very clear the reason why you need to cut your background block quite a bit larger than the finished size, because when you have many pieces, and especially strips like this, you can tell a little bit right here that there is some shrinkage there. So when it comes to the flowers themselves, I find these size up to the smallest circle, I have really no difficulty in applicating them. The challenge is with the smallest circle of all, which in your pattern they're numbered as number 19 and number 24. So here I think I'm going to go ahead and applicate them, but they're really, really tiny. And in fact, I had to kind of hold them up with tweezers, okay? They're really, really small. I find that if I go just really slowly, it works. But the other option that you have is either not to include that little circle, or you could also put some beads on, or you could just do some French knots if you want in the middle. In any event, I'm going to see how this goes, okay? Okay, so here's the finished block. As I mentioned, this is the only teeny tiny piece in the block. I still managed. What I did was just a very small zigzag stitch around, and I just went very slowly. Other than that, this was a really easy block. I hope you're enjoying this project.